Aaron Freeman here of Locked On Falcons, Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints here for a crossover Thursday, which is presented by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code in lowercase LockedOnNFL, and you can win $50 instantly when you play $5. So, Ross, we are talking about the things that these teams have to do in order to win football games, also known as keys to victory. And what are three that you think the New Orleans Saints have to do this Sunday to emerge with a win?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is find a way to run the football. And a good way to do that is to get Taysom Hill involved a bunch. Taysom has been the kind of Falcons kryptonite and everything at times. He should be back and healthy. So I think that he has to play a big role in getting that run game going. They're gonna have to you're gonna have to get after Kirk Cousins with the pass rush as well. Keep him uncomfortable. Keep him making some bad decisions or force him into making some bad decisions if they can. And then lastly, number 3 for me is generate explosive plays on offense, while of course limiting them on defense. New Orleans has done a good job of both of those things. In some cases, when they haven't, that's when they've lost.
Yeah, for me, the Falcons, it's the first thing is someone's got to control the line of scrimmage in this game, and hopefully it's the Atlanta Falcons that do that on either side of the ball with establishing a run, stopping the run game, and making one of these teams play in a way left-handed that they don't want to necessarily play. And then the second thing to me is don't be a bozo, referring to Kirk Cousins, right? Don't turn the ball over. Don't do the bozo stuff that Kirk Cousins, the chaos that Kirk Cousins occasionally has in this matchup. And then the third thing is I want to see if this coaching staff can make the adjustments to get better play in some of these areas of deficiency that we discussed on today's episode. But
that's Ross, a great call.
Kicking it back to you, I was hoping that we would go entire crossover Thursday episode without the Taysom Hill name being dropped on the podcast. And unfortunately, we had to do it. But what is Taysom Hill's role in the Saints' new look offense under Clint Kubiak? What are you expecting from him this weekend?
Can I answer the question about what his role is by simply saying yes? That's kind of what his role has been so far this season. He'll take snaps at running back, he'll take snaps at fullback, tight end, wide receiver, in the slot, quarterback. Like they'll just fold him in everywhere. And then he's on both kick and punt return and coverage units as well. They missed him last week up against the Philadelphia Eagles. That would have been a massive help, especially after losing Eric McCoy, to just have that extra juice in the run game in terms of what it is that he's able to provide. Look, Alvin Kamara missed Wednesday's practice with a hip/ribs injury. I think he'll probably be fine by the time that the actual weekend rolls around, but just a big one to watch. And if he's hampered in any way, or if he's not able to go, it's not only Jamal Williams, the backup running back, that ends up being called upon. It's Taysom Hill that's going to be called upon in that run game. So I would expect him to be somebody that ends up getting the ball quite often from a variety of different ways. But I expect that it's mostly going to be his involvement would mostly be in the run game, although he still has the option to go out there and run, or not the option, but is still called upon to go out there and run routes and things like that as well.
Yeah. And, on that third key to victory that I suggested about making adjustments, basically what I mean.
Such a good one, by the way.
Is, my worry with the Atlanta Falcons is that, they're going to be this team that is we're going to run what we're going to run, and it's up to our opponent to stop us. And I would like to see the team do things differently, right? It's the idea of like, if you're a team and you do A, B, and C well, and then, injuries take away B, and then you're playing an opponent that can also take away C, can you make that adjustment? And just instead of just relying on doing A well, you can also now add D and E and F to your repertoire. And I think if the Falcons can show that they can do that, given some of the concerns we have with the run game, and not being able to rely as much on the outside zone scheme, with their ability to stop the run, that to me is going to be a big key to not only their success on Sunday, but throughout the rest of the season, because that's going to be something that you're going to need to do as the season wears on, because attrition and injuries and all these various things and different matchups are going to affect you. And I think for me, that's the one lingering question I have with this new Falcons coaching staff on how good are they at making some of these adjustments, because in both of their losses to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kansas City Chiefs, it felt like both of those teams, especially those defenses, kind of figured out what the Falcons were doing midway through the game, and the Falcons really weren't able to kind of make those in-game adjustments to figure something out to sort of counter what those defenses were doing. So I think that's going to be important this week, especially going up against another very good defense under a very good defensive coordinator in head coach in Dennis Allen.
Yeah, it's funny. This is now the moment where a lot of Saints fans that are listening go, "Wait, is he talking about the Falcons or is he talking about the Saints?" Because like this is one of those things that happens when you get into sort of the business of the wide zone offense. And both of these teams dealt in that sort of black market over the course of this offseason, and getting Zach Robinson over in Atlanta, having Clint Kubiak here in New Orleans. There's a lot of that mentality of just going to run what they run and win with it, and that's going to be the idea. And I think Saints fans kind of got introduced to that a little bit last week, to where, they were running what they were running. It wasn't working. Then they ran what they typically run, but they ran it out of something else and it still didn't work. And they didn't really have another avenue to go to. And then the big question mark became, is that an inability to adjust, an unwillingness to adjust, which is very common around the NFL. I wish that people really realize how common that is, that most teams go in and say, this is the identity, we're not changing, and don't really make those big wide swath change of direction adjustments. They make sort of smaller tweaks and things like that throughout a game. But we saw that with New Orleans. And so the big question was it injury driven, or was it like this is sort of part of what it is to have a wide zone offense? And so it's going to be really interesting to see both of these teams potentially end up in that same situation again this week, to where one of them will have to adjust. Who adjusts best might be the one that ends up walking away with the victory.